"What's your rank?" The Marine mocked her. Seconds later, 3 admirals saluted. Nobody in that commissary that Tuesday afternoon thought anything special was going to happen. It was just another slow afternoon on base. The kind of day where people moved through the aisles quietly, picked up what they needed, and left. Nothing worth remembering. Nothing worth talking about later. That was about to change. A woman walked through the sliding doors of the Naval Station Commissary in Norfolk, Virginia. She wasn't in uniform. She had on plain jeans, a faded navy blue jacket, and a canvas tote bag hanging off her shoulder. Her hair had gone gray at the temples. She had reading glasses pushed up on her forehead. She looked like someone's aunt who had come in to grab a few things before heading home to cook dinner. She moved through the bread aisle without looking up. She wasn't in a hurry, but she wasn't wasting time either. She had a list in her head. Coffee creamer, a loaf of bread, maybe something else if it caught her eye. She had a briefing to prepare for. She wasn't there to be seen. She was never really there to be seen. Near the checkout, a group of young servicemen stood waiting in line. One of them, young, broad-shouldered, the kind of guy who had been told he was impressive enough times that he had started believing it a little too easily, noticed her. He looked her up and down the way people sometimes do when they think someone doesn't belong somewhere. He nudged one of his buddies, said something low. They both smirked. Then he said it louder, loud enough for people nearby to hear. "What's your rank, sweetheart? You even supposed to be in here?" There was that particular silence that falls over a room when something mean has just been said in public. The kind of silence where everyone hears it, everyone processes it, and most people look away because getting involved feels dangerous. The woman at the register didn't flinch. She didn't turn around. She didn't say a word. She just kept her eyes forward and finished what she was doing. Swiped her base access card, waited for the beep, picked up her receipt, and lifted her bag off the counter. Behind the register, the young cashier, a petty officer second class who had been working that counter for about 8 months, looked up and recognized the woman's face. Her mouth opened slightly. Her eyes went wide. She knew exactly who she was looking at. The woman at the counter caught her expression and gave her the smallest, calmest look. It wasn't a warning exactly. It was more like a gentle instruction. "Don't." The cashier closed her mouth, gave a tiny nod, straightened up and went back to her screen. The woman picked up her bag and turned toward the exit. And that is the exact moment the doors opened from the outside. 3 men in full dress uniform walked in. Not just any 3 men. A rear admiral. Another rear admiral. And at the front, Admiral Carl Devers, the Chief of Naval Operations. The highest-ranking officer in the United States Navy. A man whose handshake makes colonels nervous. They were mid-conversation when they stepped through those doors. Clipboards, schedules, the kind of talk that happens between people who run things. Their eyes were still on each other when the admiral looked up and saw her. He stopped walking. His right hand moved to his cover in a sharp, clean salute. The 2 admirals behind him, a half-beat later, did the same. 3 of the most powerful military officers in the country, standing at attention in the commissary bread aisle, saluting a woman in jeans holding a loaf of bread and a container of coffee creamer. "Vice Admiral Okafor," the admiral said, and there was no mistaking the tone. It wasn't polite. It wasn't professional courtesy. It was genuine respect. "Didn't realize you were on base today, ma'am." The commissary went very quiet. A different kind of quiet this time. The young man near the checkout, the one who had said what he said, stood holding his energy drink, and for a moment, he didn't fully understand what he was watching. Then his friend grabbed his arm, and the weight of it landed on him all at once. He stood very still. Vice Admiral Margaret Okafor, 3 stars, 39 years of service, the first black woman in American history to reach that rank in the United States Navy, exchanged a few easy, warm words with the admiral. Something about a joint task force briefing scheduled for later in the week. The kind of conversation that happens between people who have worked together across decades and don't need to perform anything for each other. Then she said her goodbyes. She gave the room a single quiet nod. Not dramatic, not for effect. Just the natural acknowledgement of a person who has long since stopped needing anyone's attention, and walked out into the October afternoon. She had her bread. She had her creamer. She had work waiting for her. She was already thinking about the briefing. Back inside, nobody moved for a second or two. Then the cashier behind the register, the one who had seen her face and kept her mouth shut, let out a very slow, very controlled breath. And if you were standing close enough, You might have caught the edge of a smile she was working hard to keep off her face. An older sergeant who had been standing near the far wall, reading the back of a cereal box and pretending not to watch any of it, set the box down and walked over to the young man who had said what he said. He didn't rush. He moved the way people move when they've already decided what they're going to say, and there's no reason to hurry it. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. That woman flew combat support missions in the Gulf War, he said. She commanded a carrier strike group. She has been decorated 11 times. She was the first black woman in the history of this country to pin on 3 stars in the United States Navy. And you asked her what her rank was. The young man said nothing. There was nothing useful to say. The sergeant looked at him for a moment longer. You're going to think about today for a long time, he said. Make sure you think about the right parts. He picked his cereal back up and walked away. Margaret Okafor was born in Baltimore in 1966. Her mother was a school teacher. Her father worked the docks. They were not wealthy people, but they were serious people, and they raised a serious daughter. She enlisted at 19 because the military was the most rigorous path in front of her, and she had always been drawn to things that were hard. The early years were not easy. She was mocked more than once. She was underestimated constantly. There was a superior officer early in her career who told her, with complete confidence, that she would top out at lieutenant commander. He said it like he was doing her a favor by letting her know early. She filed it away. She didn't argue. She didn't waste energy being angry about it. She just went back to work. In 1998, she was passed over for promotion. She never publicly said much about why. She called it a setback, in the one interview where she was asked about it. Then she went quiet on the subject, the way people do when they have decided that the event in question does not get to define them. She kept going. That's the whole story, really. She kept going when it would have been completely reasonable to stop, and eventually, the work built up into something that couldn't be argued with. She pinned on her 3rd star in a ceremony that a lot of people in that room had never thought they would see. She didn't give a long speech. She thanked her family. She thanked the people who had served alongside her. She said something brief and honest about the weight of the moment, and then she moved on to the work that was waiting. That was who walked into that commissary on a Tuesday afternoon in October. That was the woman someone had decided to question. That evening, Margaret Okafor sat at her kitchen table with Thursday's briefing materials spread out in front of her. The coffee was hot. The creamer she had picked up that afternoon was already in it. Outside the window, the base was settling into the quiet of early evening. The day's small moment, the thing someone had said at the checkout line, the pause, the salute, all of it, had taken up maybe 4 minutes of her life. It had not disrupted her afternoon. It had not changed her plans. It had not cost her anything. This, she had learned over nearly 4 decades, is what it actually feels like to have earned something real. You don't need to defend it. You don't need to announce it. You don't need to explain yourself to people who don't know who you are. The thing you built eventually speaks for itself. She turned a page in the briefing folder, made a note in the margin, picked up her coffee. Somewhere on base, a young serviceman was probably lying awake, replaying those 4 minutes over and over in his head. She had already moved on. She had work to do.